You ready? Yes, sir. Okay. We will call this meeting to order at 4:54. And this is a special meeting of the Encinitas City Council for one agenda item, and it is for the fiscal year 2026-27 City Council Annual Work Plan and Focus Area and Goals. And if the city clerk will call the meeting, or sorry, call the roll call.
Yep. Councilmember Lyons?
Here.
Councilmember San Antonio?
Present.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Here.
We will note when Deputy Mayor O'Hara does arrive, and Mayor Ehlers.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will turn it over to Deputy City Manager James for a staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and members of City Council. So just as a brief recap of this work plan item and the discussion that we're going to have this afternoon, this all came from the two-day workshop that was held in February. And really there was two primary goals or two primary tasks that came out of that. One was the City Council reaffirmed the city's vision and mission, and that was established at last year's annual work plan. And then the second piece, which is probably going to be the bigger part of the discussion that we'll have here this afternoon, is to discuss the draft focus areas, the associated goals, and then the departments that were assigned to each of those goals. And you'll find all that information starting on page 2 of the staff report, and then the goals, the focus area and goals go into page 4. But the plan this evening, if the council wishes, is we can pull up the spreadsheet, and we can walk through the spreadsheet and go over the information that's contained within it, and we can really just edit as we move along. I would like to take note of two things. First is within the spreadsheet, you'll see that there's cells that are highlighted in green, and that's at staff's initial look that those goals will require some type of additional finances or funding, and it's important to talk about that now because next week we plan to have the budget workshop. And then the second item to take note of is that there are some cells that have strike-throughs, the wording. And really, that was made for two reasons. One, because one of the action items was staff reviewed that and determined that that's more of an operational maintenance item, not necessarily a focus area or larger city council goal. And so that's a recommendation. And the other two items, staff anticipates that those will be completed before the end of this fiscal year or in this current work plan. And so when we're talking about this current work plan and moving into next year, the plan would be that we go through the spreadsheet this evening, and then staff or I'll draft any of those edits. And then when we come back and review this in May, then that will have the specific objectives for each quarter in order to accomplish those goals. So if you take a step back and you look at this document, it really is a draft or a working document at this point in time, so we can change it, we can edit it, and then even going into May, we can do additional edits when we have that meeting, because by the time we get the third quarter and fourth quarter updates, there will be changes to this. And some of those changes could also include work plan goals that weren't accomplished this annual work plan would be carried over into the next work plan, and that'll be part of that discussion that comes in all likelihood in May or shortly thereafter. So at this point in time, that concludes staff's presentation. What staff can do is put the spreadsheet up, and then we can walk through it. By this time, staff is available to respond to any initial questions that the council may have.
Okay, do we have any initial questions? If not, I'll go to public comment. How many? Two, okay. So we'll have public comment.
First speaker, Vivian Vale, followed by Lee Ratcliffe.
Good afternoon, Council. I'm just here as a reminder, Jennifer, our conversation last week, that you find a place in the work plan for the STVR program cleanup that we've been talking about. That's it.
That was quick. Then we have a...
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Lee Ratcliffe, a founding member of Safe Streets Encinitas, and we just wanted to thank the council and council members for including us in this process of developing the work plan. Yeah, we just want to extend our thanks. We are super excited to see some really cool things on this plan. like infrastructure adjustments and issues with DUI, speeding, red light camera enforcement, that kind of thing. So yeah, we are excited for the new year. We wanted to make sure to let you know that we want to be a part of this process. We want to be at the table. We're here to help, and we think we're a good resource. We've been developing relationships with traffic engineers and traffic experts. We have our own experts that have delved into the data, and we are super excited to work with you this year. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, oops. Do we go into deliberation and any comments? Anybody want to start? I can start if nobody else wants to. I'll hop in. I'll even hit my button here. Let's see. In general, yeah, I thought it captured the charts. I didn't mark. I had a small version of this, so I didn't mark up on here. I marked up on the memo. So I think they're the same. So I'm going to just go down and make a few comments here. Under goal, I'm going to start with one. What do you call it? Focus area 1, goal 1. I would add a second goal bullet in there, which is develop a long-term funding strategy for Fire Station 1 and Fire Station 6. Now, it's not that we would implement it in the next year, but we need to understand when we're going to long-term fund it. And I know we'll be working on a 5-year capital plan, and I don't know whether Fire Station 1 would be in that capital plan or just beyond it, depending on our borrowing capability, that type of stuff. So that's one recommendation I would make. On goal number 3 of Focus Area 1, the enhanced traffic safety and enforcement, I think there are some things like develop e-bike strategy was one of the bullets under there, and that's the same as or very similar to Focus Area 3, 1, and I called it B, the second one. So maybe we combine those two into a single bullet and put it under the most appropriate focus area. Might be a way to reduce the number of goals we've got. Moving down to number 2, formulate a consolidated master plan. I wasn't quite sure, is that like an update to the general plan, or is that a asset master plan or a capital master plan? What was meant there?
Thank you, Mayor, for that. So I think in the overall goal it's to assess and evaluate and then consolidate all the existing master plans that we have in place or that we will form. And then the reference to the general plan, that was a mistake on my part. That should, in all likelihood, have completed master plans or plans. So then it's really looking at the entire city's infrastructure.
Oh, okay, got
and
it.
Really pulling from all the master plans that are currently in place to help guide us as we look forward into 2040 and 2050.
Or if nothing else, at least map them out so we know which ones are current and which ones are, because we have I think later in here we talk about consolidating the ATP, MAP, and Trails Master Plan as an example of plans that have been adopted over the last 5 to 20 years, and they aren't necessarily in alignment. So, so is this not rewriting all of the 20 or 30 plans we have, but just organizing them?
Correct. It would be consolidating and essentially having them mirror together to really lay out what the future will look like.
Okay. So you might reword that a little. Formulate a consolidated master plan implies that we're bringing it all together into one document. And I think it's really provide a framework for all of the adopted plans we've had over the last 25 years, 30 years. You know, in the local roadway safety plan and ATP and MAP and HAP and CAP and whatnot. You know, certain of those I think we will definitely keep, and we are in the midst of enhancing. But we want to understand how they all play together. And boy, I tell you, we should have at least a master list of plans, active plans, on the website somewhere so people know general plan is the top. Here are the elements, and below that are a bunch of tactical plans or I don't know what you call them. We'll come up with a name. Let's see. Moving on, I didn't have any changes in 3. I thought they were right on. In 4, on goal 2, the bullet there, continue and expand sand replenishment. I would add the words on all beaches, then parentheses, I would add the word especially beacons north of Ponto, and just word it that way. In other words, the goal we're going for is to keep replenishing our sand everywhere, but since the USACE program does not include beacons in north, we want to give it some extra love by SCOOP program or RBSP3 or whatever plan it might be. Moving down to 5. In goal 2, I like what you got there. I would put a comment, somehow work in the leveraging the business commission to help in that, especially in the marketing plan. And likewise, goal 3, have a business commission review there. Again, leverage the business commission. Other than that, I agreed with them. In goal 6,
Mayor, can you back up and what was that second comment?
kind of the same for both. It was
For both, okay.
they should both leverage the business commission. So I think they should mention the business commission role in those goals. Either review or leverage or whatever the pleasure of the council is. We have a new resource. We want to make sure we put them to work. And then down on number 6, if I can keep going, increase inclusionary housing. I would add the term, if feasible, especially on upzone properties. In other words, I know from my past life on Planning Commission, we're probably at the upper feasible limit based on past studies for our standard inclusionary. 15 to 20% is where we are, depending whether it's low or very low, and going much higher than that. We're going to have some pretty good data to do that. Now, on anything that we upzone, like the R30 overlay, if we had new properties we put in there we can go higher, absolutely. We should work on that and figure out what that number should be. So I just want to be careful that we don't make the goal that we will absolutely increase the inclusionary. If it's not feasible, people would A, sue us, and B, HCD would not allow it to. So there has to be some level of feasibility. And then my last comment is we talk about the objectives coming, and these will be the layer of detail one below. I would ask that they be, I think you called them streamlined and simple. I would ask them to be SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realizable and trackable, whatever the kind of standard way, so that they have very definitive deliverables with the definitive quarters that they would be delivered. And so SMART goals is a pretty standard way to call them. And those are my comments. Other than that, I thought it captured the session quite well. I've got Councilmember Lyons next.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Good work, Mike. Just a few gaps here that I think would be helpful, not only for my own clarification, but for the public to understand a little more specifically what the objective is, but I think it also helps us. So item, let's see. So focus area 2, and this would be 221. We talk about, you've characterized this as develop a 5-year capital projection. I have always envisioned that as not only the information that we had in our infrastructure task force work, which was pretty comprehensive at the time, but also with our facilities assessment that we're considering at our city council meeting later this evening. Am I characterizing that correctly, that it's really meant to capture all of our capital improvements, whether it's facilities or roadway or drainage, everything under the city's oversight?
Yes, you are correct. It's
Okay.
going to be any capital project that would really transcend any of our departments would be consolidated into the 5-year capital improvement program.
And I've always understood that to be put together by professionals who understand the infrastructure, the uniqueness of the building or the road, just like we do with our pavement index, where we evaluate the condition of something and then we prioritize it based on what its condition is and what the cost of like full replacement might be versus maintenance over time. So we have it organized in a real specific assessment language, and then with recommendations from staff on where the top priorities are, and then coming to the city council for final recommendations. That's how I understand that process. Is that how you are seeing it as staff who's heading this up?
Yes, it will be driven by staff with the professional analysis work already being completed by consultants that have been brought on board. So the pavement management program or the facility condition assessment, which we were going to talk a little bit later this evening, is a great example of that, where the consultant came in, provided the work, and then is providing that priority list for staff and for city council's consideration, and then that will be placed into each year of the 5-year capital improvement program, which as you and the rest of council, I'm sure, are very familiar with, that it would typically follow a design year, and then if there is additional right-of-way work, would be accomplished that next year, and or construction. And that's typically how a 5-year capital improvement program would work. You design one year, construct the next while you're designing the next, and then construct. So each year, ideally, when you get into it, you're designing and constructing. And
So
that encompasses all departments.
And so even something like the playground in Glen Park, the playgrounds often will get feedback from the community saying, when are we going to fix that or restore it or maybe modernize it? We could look at our publicly available capital improvement program, and we could find Glen Park, and then we could see, well, based on the recommendation and council approval at this time, it's scheduled for 2028, or we could be that regimented about what we're planning on doing.
Yes, that is its purpose.
Good. Thank you. So this is focus area 3. A couple of my questions have a little bit of an angle on, let's capture what that means for our budget. So we're going to be talking about our budget, as you mentioned, starting next week. We've got goal number 1.1, for instance, as an example, says our goal is to improve driver behavior. For example, speeding, DUI, distracted driving, red light stops, stop signs, violations. That will probably have a budget associated with it. If we're going to achieve this in the next 12 or the next fiscal year, then we need to identify specific tasks within that and have a budget that we approve by the beginning of our fiscal year. How are we going to get some estimates on what some of these items we've talked about, which you didn't capture here yet, but we've talked about some detail? Will we have that starting next week, so from staff, so we can be, maybe I need to go to the city manager for this question, so that we can be informed what we can agree to for the next fiscal year?
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, when it's with the speeding and DUI, as council remembers, we did add 2 new traffic deputies in last year's fiscal budget. So they have been doing DUI. The sheriffs have been doing more DUI. Obviously, speeding, it's more enforcement. With distracted driving, we'll likely look at educational campaigns. So that's pretty much operations and maintenance. We can look at that. As far as any red light or stop sign with the violations. As far as red light cameras, I know that's been spoken about. We have not been given direction yet from council to explore red light cameras. We'd have to research that thoroughly and look at a cost. We don't currently have that because we don't have direction from council on that. What we do recommend in the fiscal year, as we always do, is we recommend having sort of a reserve fund, so $500,000 in unrestricted fund balance, which could be used for emergencies or it could be used for other funding. But we don't have a cost remotely for that. But we do know how much our deputies cost. We know how much the ongoing sheriff's contract. We do have built-in marketing and education in our budgets to help with that as far as any type of PSA or doing videos. We have that money already budgeted for that, so we don't need additional.
I think it would be really helpful to us. We have talked about red light cameras, for example. We haven't brought that forward as an item on our agenda, but a lot of times we'll bring forward ideas as a part of our budgeting process and talk about them, get public input, and decide on what to specifically fund for that next year as part of our budget process. So I would like to ask if it's okay with our structure for us to get some detailed information so that we can feel like we're jumping right on some of these things. We can consider it as part of the budget process, but then we'll know, like say it's $150,000 to do red light. I don't know, I'm just guessing, but that's a significant amount of money, and I'd like to know that when we're talking about budgeting this year, so we don't waste time.
Sure. The other thing I would say is there is going to be a cost, obviously, for installation, I'm sure, of red light cameras, but then there's also all the resources that go with it. When we had red light cameras before, we had Red Flex, and I was not involved in that in any capacity because I was just Park and Rec director. There's a lot more to that than just the cameras because there's citations, how it's managed. So we have our first budget workshop next week, so what I would look is either we would need direction to, again, this is kind of a work plan item, so more likely we could next Wednesday when we do budget workshop. If you want us to look at that, we could. The next budget workshop's the 8th. We could do our best to put that. The other part is I think it's important for council to be able to see the budget calculator. We've heard many things, and I will tell you preliminary looking at it, some of the asks will be more than we have as usual, so we'll be asking council to make some decisions. So it would be good for council to see a lot of the items that we have, but we could, after the 18th, try to put together as much of a cost as we could for the next budget workshop. Yes.
Good. I'd like to not waste time. If we could get this forward and talk about the merits of some of these things we've talked about informally. We talked about it at it's not even informal. We talked about it at strategic planning. Now, I might want to bring that forward. I might know that I've got some concurrence on city council, but if staff can have the number that's associated with it so that we're not just shooting in the dark, is it 500,000? Is it 100,000? That makes a big difference. So there'll be a couple things, and the red light cameras is one of them, that I'll be bringing forward. If now is not the time to direct staff for that, then I'll wait until next week. I think we've got a few months here to do our budgeting, so I'm happy to wait for next week. I just want to be clear on what the process is. Thank you.
Okay.
I have some more, but I just wanted to thank Jennifer for filling in the gaps on that. Another budget item that I know you've identified some with green, Mike, so I appreciate that you've already done that. I'm wondering if, oh shoot, where did I find this? Okay, there may be some more specific information we can get some numbers on associated with the evaluate and identify incentives. This is under focus area 5. It's goal number 1. Encourage historic designation, evaluate and identify incentives for historic structures and resources. I think as a city council and with staff, we've started a conversation about what could possibly be included. And I know at our strategic planning, we talked about the Mills Act and how that might be a real benefit to people who own historic properties. And yet, we could look at revising our Mills Act ordinance so that it's more approachable for people, that it's easier for people to use, because we've only got one property on it right now. So there would be some costs associated with something like that, and that may be just for staff's knowledge. That may be something I'm going to ask if we can talk about next week when we talk about what things are going to rise to the top as far as priorities under each of these goals. So there's going to be a few other things associated with that. I do want to follow up on one of the mayor's comments, and that's under Focus Area 6, and it's goal number 2, increasing inclusionary housing percentage. I think that was just right as far as that was what we talked about at strategic planning. But what really conditions that is that we're going to conduct a feasibility study. So I'm on board with you with what you're saying, but I feel like the feasibility study would really inform how we look at inclusionary housing, and my hope is that we can find ways to increase it. So I just wanted to give my reflection on what the mayor presented there. Oh yeah, the other thing as far as budget, it has to do with the habitat stewardship program, and we do capture, I'm trying to figure out where that is in here. It's Focus Area 4, and it's Goal 1, and it's 1.3, add new properties to habitat stewardship program. I felt we got pretty solid agreement at our strategic planning that was a good goal. I've already talked to staff about, well, what would that cost? And I would like to have that information available to us so we can really vet that, to look at adding Surfers Point, which is an open space property that we acquired a few years ago, adding Surfers Point to our habitat stewardship program, which would be a great way for us to make sure we're keeping that property in good shape until we decide what the ultimate goal for the Surfers Point property is. So I'm just shining a little bit of light on that. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, and Councilmember Schaefer.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we've touched on a pretty good broad brush that this is a great work plan. I think it definitely brings a broad brush of what the sentiment from those days and the factual points that we kind of came up with as not just this group, but the entirety of the staff with the knowledge in the room. So I just want to say thank you for that. I see the duplications in the e-bike, Mayor, and I'm not against it right now until we get some of the objectives that come with it. I think it's a good idea to keep some of these up because the way that it's written out, it may land in different departments. And that goes for kind of anything that's duplicated, at least for a little while. If different departments are looking at the same problem, sometimes we get different resolution from a different angle. And so I think it's good having sometimes in certain goals, and this is a big one right now, as we've just had 3 more accidents this last week, pretty significant as well. So I would be okay with that model and keeping that up there. For the CIP portion of this, I couldn't. That's probably for me one of the top items this year to really get in, and not just the CIP program, but also the collaboration of all of the master plans. Like Councilmember Lyons had said that is a very quick reference for more people to have better resolution on the actual problem and minimize the communication gap, I think, between staff, residents, and everybody in between, and obviously us as council members being able to see exactly what it is that we're working towards and what the master plan looks like. So those 2 items, I think, for me on this entirety of the plan, as again, we want to work towards all these things, but those are the crux of this goal setting session for me. And I just say that out loud and put it on the record there that those 2 things are going to give us the biggest clarity going forward. And the city, as of right now, in my personal opinion, is in a big shift. And the birth of our city, Eki selling his property, probably the mid to late 2000s, and right now are some pretty big moments in the city as far as big changes with these these large developments coming in, it's just going to be that time. It's like when Village Park went in. That was a big change for the city. So I think those two give us clarity over the horizon a little bit as things change and things adjust, and obviously at a state and national level. So outside of that, I'll leave it there for right now. I'm not sure we're going to get back around, but that's all I had to say for now.
And Deputy Mayor O'Hara.
Okay, so I did have a question of clarity to start off with. Section 3, goal 1.2. I kind of remember being in this group. I'm not sure this has been written as we talked about it, and I'm just a little curious. And that might be why it's on there redundantly twice. I think we talked about all modes of traffic. I think there was a healthy discussion about it. Councilmember Lyons, I believe you were in that group with me.
Yes, I was.
And we talked about all modes of traffic, not just e-bike, focusing on, because we were very specific about all modes, right?
Yeah, thank you for, do you mind if I just?
No, go ahead, please.
I think the point that was made was that drivers of vehicles also would benefit from education about e-bike safety.
Yeah, so I think part of the discussion, that's absolutely correct. So maybe it stays on there like that, and maybe there's a point that gets added to it. I think we still want to focus on safety for all modes of transportation, and we have a lot going on in the city where that's going to be a constant process. And so I think it's really important that we maintain, we don't funnel that focus straight to e-bikes, even though I have a feeling based on recent news that it's going to become more and more of a loud subject. That we still continue to look at all modes of transportation. And I don't see a space other than that where that's touched, and that's why I asked if that line was written, maybe not translated correctly from the meeting itself. And I think it's something I'd like to see us look at and kind of define a little bit better, or make sure that all modes of transportation is included in there. Number 2, if we're going to look at getting things back, we are still waiting to find out about SROs and further feedback from staff on that. I would like to see the development of SROs. I think that is a big part of our e-bike strategy. It's a big part of our safety around our schools. And it is going to be, just like our public safety with our traffic officers, a line item that is significant, that we want to have the numbers in front of us so that we can look into doing. La Costa Canyon has one. We have other schools in the city that would probably benefit as well. I know it's a great resource for them. I've met the officer. She loves her students there. They seem to love her. We saw a great video. Oceanside recently posted a thing about their SROs and how amazing they were. So I would like to see that come back. I know we did talk about it here at council. I know that report was supposed to come back. I'd love to see it come back during this time so that we can talk about whether it makes sense or what we can do, or approach the school districts and see if they're willing to put in for half, in the name of safety, help us fund it. We'll figure it out. Number 3, I just want to reiterate huge support, and I think it's ongoing for the goal 1, section 1.1. To add in Fire Station 1, permanent Fire Station 1, because I believe they're tandem. There's a possibility they're tandem. We talked about buying the temporary Fire Station 1 with the possibility of, hey, maybe this gets actually moved. We can literally lift it up, move it out to Fire Station 6 if we have a plan for Fire Station 1. And so putting them in concert, I agree with the mayor, is very, very important. I'd like to see that put in there and what that solution is. Moving to inclusionary housing, I think the council hit the nail on the head with this one, and I just want to hit how big that is for everybody up here, and how exciting is it? We all were on board with that one. I think it was a giant one. I want to move to, I think it goes with section 3. 2.1, and it's something we've been talking. I want to make sure it stays on the front burner. We really need to develop a clear, I know it's coming back to us, but a clear picture of what the circulation element and the goals of our roadway design are in the city. And I know we talk about road infrastructure in here, and we talk about some other pieces, but we need that circulation element to be clear so we can start designing the city holistically and not just one intersection at a time. I mean, tonight we're going to talk about one intersection at the end of this meeting, and I think that those moments where we can make adjustments are really important and really beneficial to the city, especially in those instances where we can recognize, hey, this one doesn't fit with everything else. But our city still lacks a big holistic picture of what we're trying to do everywhere, so that's just obviously clear to the residents. So I'd like to see that in here in a little bit better manner. And I think we talked about it. I know we talked about circulation element coming back. Yep. And then last thing I see missing on here that I think is really, really important is somewhere in here where we commit to spending our financial resources more and more responsible. I know this year we've looked at cutting costs in certain places. We've looked at tasking staff with the ability to do things more, giving them AI techniques and equipment to be more. I think we have a huge list coming our way, and I'd like to see us prioritize ways to manage our financial resources, whether it be using fewer consultants, whether it be sourcing material, whether it be looking at contracts when they come about. I know we have a couple coming up that are going to need to be addressed, where we can save a couple $1 million here and there, and that'll add up. So I want to make sure that that gets added in here somewhere. I don't necessarily see that listed directly. And I'm not sure we even talked about it, but this is the time to do it.
Okay. Okay, and I was going to see
Excuse me, Mayor?
Council Member San Antonio hadn't gone. Can I go ahead?
Just a quick follow-up question for Deputy Mayor. Can you go back to the discussion of when you touched on Fire Station 1, Fire Station 6?
Oh, sure. So we looked
what,
at
what
fire.
part was that?
What's that?
What section?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's in section 1.1.
Oh, so it's here. Okay, got it.
Yep. The mayor had mentioned kind of putting the two together. I was saying I totally agree with that because I think the decisions can balance each other out, potentially save the city money or help each other work better. I even know we talked about temporary fire station being available to sell if we need to. So it makes sense to kind of do the two in concert. And I think it'll help our fire department figure out the best way to go too.
Planning.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember San Antonio.
Thanks, everybody. You guys all had some great, already found some great things in there. I think for me, number one on my list right here that I've seen was the e-bike safety. I definitely have seen, through all our emails we get from the chief, e-bike safety, definitely, we've had a lot of e-bike accidents just in general throughout the city. So I think that for me is something we should definitely concentrate on. I feel like whether it's the e-bike strategy, some education, there's just so many things going on with these e-bikes right now. I know I know the sheriff's already stepped up their enforcement, but for me that's pretty important right now. Just because I keep seeing it pop up, and as much as I, try to figure out these are just a necessary thing right now, but I feel like I don't want to get that lost in here. I think that thanks Councilmember or Deputy Mayor O'Hara for trying to separate that out between all modes of e-bike safety, and e-bike safety. But I believe that definitely e-bike is something we should concentrate on. And thank you, Mayor. Fire Station 1 and 6, that definitely makes a lot of sense to put those together and to develop that long-term plan. I know it's a huge cost. I know our city managers talked about it before, but I know it's going to be significant. But I know we got to find that money somewhere. So that's definitely something we should definitely keep an eye on. The SROs, I know I brought that up myself, and I know I know we had a lot of stuff that's come up, and I lost track of it as well, but that is definitely something that's very important to me. I'd love to hear more, what the staff thinks. I know that I should personally reach out myself again to the schools. I know you guys are definitely on it with a liaison, with being a school liaison, but I know I've got to do my DD on that as well. So, but I'm happy. Thank you for putting that back on there. I'll leave.
Okay. I wanted to make sure there were a few topics that may be down at the objective level, but I wanted to make sure we address them. First one would be STVRs, and trying to figure out which section, which goal that might be in support of. Is that a business process? To me, that's a business process improvement. And so I think the feedback I would give is on goal area 5, goal 3, establish clear and concise business permit processes. I think that could almost be expanded to just city permitting processes and follow-up. And I would put an objective under there for STVRs. It wouldn't have to show up in the goal here, but I want to make sure that shows up. Similarly, I'd like to make sure that that includes not only permitting a new business, but also permitting a single-family house and going through the entitlement process when things get lost. I'm looking at Scott again. And so we need to make sure we're cleaning up all those processes and streamlining them where they need streamlining and making sure we don't have people waiting 3 years for a permit of a single family house. So that's two of them. Leucadia flooding, I wasn't quite sure. I think it might be under, I want to make sure we maintain a goal that we are going after, and I think that's under Focus Area 1. Let me just check here. And it's really public safety infrastructure, and so I would add a second sub-bullet under Goal 1, which is Leucadia flooding. And then PCI and pavement, making sure we're still focused on improving our pavement. After all, having good pavement is good for bicyclists, for micromobility, for vehicles. Having rough, pretty beaten up pavement like we have in some places, I think is a risk for everybody using our roads. So I'd like to see that probably under Focus Area 3, and I'm not quite sure where. The next one would be publicly owned, privately maintained roads. This again is down at the objective level. I have quite a few people, Coal Ranch Road being a poster child, but we have quite a few alleys that are publicly owned, privately maintained, and I think we need to address that policy and possibly even put some funding towards getting that under control. And I think that would go under one of the goals in Focus Area 3. And then the other thing that we talked about at the goal setting session has to do with affordable housing allocation methodology. And I'm not sure whether that goes in the business process area or the affordable housing area. I'm not quite sure, but I'd like to make sure we have an objective that we are going to evaluate and improve how affordable units are allocated within the city. Today, we have a rather laissez-faire method of letting the developer choose who it goes to. I don't think that's working. And I'd like to see that addressed by this council. And I know we talked about it during the goal setting session, but it didn't rise up to a full goal. So which goal that goes under, I don't know. Probably business processes, because it's one of the many processes we need to address. So that was my laundry list of 5 or 6 items that I thought needed to be addressed. So with that, we'll go to Deputy Mayor O'Hara.
And I actually, in my notes, looking at them here, I'm wondering if maybe, to the mayor's point, maybe it's down below, but just so it doesn't fall off the table if it needs to be on here. I assume under update environmental plans and policies, that would be something like a dark skies ordinance.
Could be, yeah.
I know that's something a lot of residents have looked at and we've looked to do. And as long as it falls under there and it fits in the work plan, then I'm good with that. We can leave it as is.
As an objective. So the next layer below
Yeah.
these would be the objectives.
Right.
Okay. And then Councilmember
With the
Schaefer.
dark skies, I think that's another aside. We can talk offline, but I appreciate that. I wanted to make sure, as we were talking about this, the council initiated item back in August, talking about the projection of where we're headed as far as possible number size of the city. It's going back to that capital improvement plan, or really that master plans model of what kind of we just went through. We do every time we do a contract, there's projections of what it's going to go to, or where the city's growing to, and what it would look like with that kind of personnel, what we would need in parks, what we would need in full-time employees for city staff, what we need for kind of road safety. Start to have that kind of through the process of this entire thing, kind of meld out what 75,000 and 90,000 people would look like in the actual city, in our actual borders, on top of what other cities would be growing. It's kind of an important, kind of a big picture and some of the other stuff we talked about with housing, but it is a projection that we want to have with regards to, we did the mass casualty this time last year. We talked about the mass casualty or whatever that could be, if there was a fires or stuff of that nature, what Encinitas would look like if we got impacted by really a shelter in place along with people evacuating to us. More and more in the last couple of weeks, it's dawned on me that we're not really at an evacuation location. And we want to see these numbers, one, for that emergency standpoint, but we also want to see this for the livability of what it would look like if that many people lived here, what we would be lacking in the resources for this community to continue to, or what we'd have to improve on. And that would be, again, that projection. So it's kind of in conjunction with we're already doing the master plan overlay, but what it would look like, where the spacing, where all that stuff would go. And where our open space would go, where all that stuff would go. So there's a picture for people to really know what it is that could be heading our way. And for us to also, again, if we are a shelter-in-place community, what that looks like if people are coming to us because they've gone from east to west and they're stopping here. And so what do we have to have on reserve as far as fire, sheriff, obviously all of the services that would require a growth in our population overnight. So it's important to have this number or to start, again, shaking this out. It wasn't an overnight kind of project. I know the GIS tool was a big part of that initiated item, but this is a big part of kind of a longer term understanding of what our city looks like on its global safety and global livability with those types of numbers. So thank you.
Okay, and with that, I don't have anybody else looking to speak. Any more comments? Mike, any questions? We gave you a lot of,
When he's done. When you're done.
okay. Yeah, I think the city manager, but we'll let you go first.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I took a lot of notes. So what I tried to accomplish is, as we were going through the comments, making those changes and highlighting them potentially in yellow as new items, and I can just walk very briefly through that process or through the comments that were made, knowing that there's additional notes here, so this really isn't all inclusive. But I think when we're looking at this first goal, improving public safety infrastructure and staffing, the discussion and the importance of looking at Fire Station 1 and what future use that could be provided while we're also considering the finishing or completing the construction of Fire Station 6. Leucadia and flooding projects are more involved specifically with drainage and making sure that that's included in there. And then also don't lose the progress that has been made with the pavement management program and make sure that's also included in there as a part of public infrastructure. This is also tied into the infrastructure piece further down, so those could be consolidated, and I think staff will massage those items before it's brought back. But then the important piece to this, the fire station itself, is also what is that long-term financial plan to be able to successfully have us move forward to accomplish that. The e-bike strategy, this item was moved and consolidated down here for the improvement of e-bike safety. But along those lines, there could be value, and I think the City Council expressed that, of carving out just the specific e-bike safety piece itself, and then take another look at the goal of the multimodal safety aspects throughout the city, so bike, ped, vehicle, moving forward. And so that could potentially be another goal that would be established, and working together with the department head team, we could do that. But let me jump back up here to providing the framework for all master plans. This would really just be that first assessment. Councilmember Schaefer, this kind of ties in with what you just mentioned, is really looking at that long-term picture and vision, and what do we need to meet that vision for however many residents, resources, and services that we're going to have to provide for them. And the start point to that is to make sure that we align all the completed master plans that we have in place, and then to be able to make sure that they're all pointing in that right direction, and essentially all those plans are getting us to the same spot and not kind of ping-ponging back and forth with different focus areas and goals. This was the emphasis on 5-year CIP. I think that was an emphasis from the entire council. And so along those lines, because it's a consolidated 5-year CIP, all departments that have capital improvement projects will be involved in this. So that was updated as far as assignments. And that'll also be something that staff works on to determine maybe other departments will be included in that too. So improved driver behavior will likely require additional funding. And so turn that cell into green. And then as a part of that discussion is to consider the red light camera cost analysis. And that'll be a discussion item next week during the budget workshop. And then whatever direction comes from that, then staff would be able to take specific action and follow up what does that mean from a cost standpoint. And then the other piece to that was a discussion of school resource officers. Oops. And this might jump to a different goal, but I think if we're looking at not just street safety for all, but I think it's also public safety, so that I think that one's going to come out in another potential goal. But look at what that cost is. And then are there partnership opportunities with the school district to be able to look at that moving forward? And again, this was just the discussion that we had about the e-bike strategy being consolidated into the safety for all modes. There was the interest to address a specific piece of the public-private alleys and some of the discussions that we had in there. So that would could be included within the roadway infrastructure, but I think staff will work on that to find the right place for it, but definitely carving that out for future discussions. And this was adding a cost estimate to consider Surfers Point as a part of the program. This was really looking at all of our beachfront, but especially Beacons North to Ponto. And this item would recommend turn green and then consider working with Development Services and prior discussions with the Mills Act. And this was an edit just to include the Business Commission and to make sure that both of these goals will also have the involvement and inclusion of the Business Commission. And then just future notes down here. Each of the objectives that staff will bring forward will be SMART objectives, looking at what is reasonably accomplished within each quarter, and then there will be the ability to, or staff will work on creating a goal to manage the anticipated expenditures and really taking the big picture look at and evaluating what we're doing from a financial review process, what tools we have in place, and to do the internal, external analysis moving forward. And then lastly is just integrate a goal of the dark sky ordinance within the environmental work to include it as a work plan or as an objective to one of the goals in the work plan. There's probably a handful of other things that I also have to make sure that I include in this, but I think the majority of the comments that were received are noted here.
Okay. Deputy Mayor O'Hara.
I just wanted to comment before we finish up here that the greatest part of this project is everybody participates. The residents show up. We heard Safe Streets was there. We heard other residents speak. The staff participates. Obviously, the council participates across the board, and we work with each other, with the residents, and all come together to do this. And it's a great experience. The guy who puts it all together, I'm going to let the mayor tell you about the guy who puts it all together and how much work he's put into this.
Well, I was going to recognize the city manager and the deputy city manager and assistant city manager. Obviously, they were crucial to this process of getting us all on the same page, all aligned, and this is the continuation of that alignment. So, but with that, I'll recognize the city manager.
Thank you very much, Mayor and council members. Want to echo the deputy mayor's sentiment. This was the second time we've done this, and it was only a day and a half this time, so not too bad. We're getting better at this. Jim Ponder was our facilitator, but it is a true group experience. You know, having our residents come and be able to talk about what they find important in our public comments, including them in on the discussions. It was nice to have not only the executive team there, but staff at all different levels that have a buy-in, because this plan definitely does not get done without all of us, meaning city council council helping to set policy and give direction, the staff being able to carry out all of the objectives and get that done. And I think the annual work plan that we have this year is going really well. We'll be coming up on third quarter shortly with that update. It's a lot of work, the 76 objectives we had from last year, so I have a feeling we're going to be right around the same amount for this one. But we appreciate all the guidance, we appreciate all of the input, and again, we will do our best to accomplish these. So as Deputy City Manager James said, we will bring this back in May with probably some additions and carryovers from the current annual work plan, and we'll have the objectives at that time. We still have June to finalize if we need, but I do want to also thank Mike as being the keeper of this document. I thoroughly appreciate that. We all have certain skills. This would not be mine, so I really appreciate Mike and his skills, and just thank you all again for all the work.
Yeah, and very, very well done well played on capturing the comments as we went real time and putting them up on the screen. I thought that really helped. Interestingly, I read an article today about Palo Alto, I think it was, and it described their objective setting process very much like what we're doing. They set 7 focus areas, and then they set goals to that, and then they're coming back with objectives to it, almost virtually identical. And it was pretty interesting to see other cities running to the same kind of classic management by objective type approach. So I look forward to another good year. So with that, I have no other comments, so we are adjourned until 6 o'clock. Excellent. Yeah, really.